The media let him get away with it. They should have been stringing him up. They should have been ripping him apart to the equivalent of a Holocaust denier. But because he's a senior member of the White Shoe Club boys, they make it really easy. So it's the mainstream media that keeps sucking up to these greedy pigs that tempers the people down from taking to the streets. Rather than chastising them, they just wink and smile and say, hey, next in the news, we're saving those people in Chile.
Rather interesting, huh? How the bankers are going to get $140 billion in bonuses and compensation this year, yet Main Street's suffering. We've got people, you know, the foreclosure thing's going through the roof, okay? People are losing their jobs, but Wall Street's rocking, baby, because of people like Barney. He's your guy, remember, because you voted for him. You're here in Massachusetts, here in Sharon, Massachusetts. Barney won, I'm sure, by a huge margin here, because you love Barney. Hey, let's see what Barney's grabbing onto. Is he going for his wallet? I got to keep asking. Is it his wallet he's going for? Because Barney likes grabbing into wallets. So here we go. Geez, what to do? The Corbett Report. Here's a little bit. You get your little 9/11 Zen and some money at the same time.
This is James Corbett of CorbettReport.com with your Sunday update for this 7th day of November 2010. And now for the real news. In our top story this week, awareness of serious questions about the official government story of 9/11 is rising dramatically as a new advertisement about the mysterious collapse of World Trade Center Building 7 began airing in the New York metropolitan area.
I lost my son,
my nephew,
my uncle,
my son,
on September 11th, 2001.
Most people don't know that a third tower fell on September 11th.
World Trade Center 7, a 47-story skyscraper, was not hit by a plane.
Although the official explanation is that fire brought down Building 7.
Over 1,200 architects and engineers have looked into the evidence
and believe there is more to the story.
Bring justice to my son,
my uncle,
my nephew,
my son,
and thousands of others who died on September 11th.
Go to buildingwhat.org.
The campaign, promoting the buildingwhat.org website, which gives further information about the evidence for the controlled demolition of Building 7, has been sponsored by a grassroots funding drive promoted by the Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth and other organizations. The ad will be running on CNN, MSNBC, the Comedy Channel, CNBC, VH1, and 8 other stations until the 10th of November and will air over 350 times and is projected to reach millions of viewers in the New York area, many of whom have never seen the collapse of Building 7. The campaign is part of a rising tide of interest in the concerns of the 9/11 Truth movement, which coincides with the recent release of thousands of videos of Ground Zero from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which used the videos in crafting its report on the collapses of the World Trade Center, but which has been held under lock and key away from public scrutiny until Pride-free via a FOIA request from the International Center for 9/11 Studies. Many of the newly released, previously secret videos reveal new audio evidence of the explosions at World Trade Center 7 prior to its collapse.
Unbelievable. Oh my God. Last explosion was something because now there's a lot of police activity and sirens and more smoke rising from the ground, new smoke. So there was some kind of additional explosion, but I don't know what it was. Definitely.
NIST cited a lack of audio evidence of explosions at Building 7 as its primary reason for dismissing the voluminous evidence that the building was brought down in a controlled demolition. Now that even more evidence is emerging to show that there is indeed audio evidence of such explosions, and that NIST was the very organization that has been keeping that information secret for the past 9 years, it remains to be seen what pressure will be brought to bear for a re-investigation on the WTC-7 collapse. In other news this week, another television advertisement is generating controversy after it was banned from airing on networks like ABC, A&E, and the History Channel. The ad, produced by Citizens Against Government Waste, deals with the timely issue of increasing U.S. debt and was deemed too controversial by the networks, who are refusing to air it.
为什么强大的国家都会走向灭亡呢？古希腊、罗马帝国、不列颠帝国、美国，因为他们都犯同样的错误，与原来使得他们成功的原则背道而驰。美国政府企图以庞大的开支和税收来摆脱严重的经济衰退，巨额的所谓刺激开支。庞大的医疗改革，政府接管私有企业，债务累累。当然，我们是他们的大债主。现在他们都得给我们干活。
You can change the future. You have to. Join Citizens Against Government Waste to stop the spending that is bankrupting America.
Precisely what is controversial about the commercial is not entirely clear, especially since it is well known that the US national debt is currently almost $14 trillion, a number almost equal to the gross domestic product of the country, and that 20% of that debt is currently held by China. Perhaps the advertisement can be construed as controversial insofar as it fails to take into account newly released information from the Federal Reserve itself, which shows that in engaging in its now infamous second round of quantitative easing to buy over $700 billion in Treasury securities over the next 6 months, the Federal Reserve will in fact overtake China to become the largest holder of US debt by the end of this month. In other economic news, newly released data indicates that over 42 million Americans are now relying on government-issued food stamps to buy basic groceries. Recent survey data shows that 28% of American households have at least one member who is looking for a full-time job. The former CEO of America's 10th largest bank went on record earlier this month to declare that the bankruptcy of the US government is now a mathematical certainty. Credit bureaus are implementing new invasive ways to spy on the personal financial records of potential loan recipients, including ways to probe utility and rent payment history, estimate personal income, gauge home value, and other tangential financial data. The global economic meltdown is continuing apace as the UK begins its austerity-driven asset fire sale by selling a 30-year concession to 2 Canadian pension funds to operate the rail link between London and the Channel Tunnel. And the National Inflation Association has released alarming new inflation estimates because of the devaluation of the dollar caused by the Federal Reserve's quantitative easing, including estimates of $23 loaves of bread, $45 orange juice cartons, $15 candy bars, and over $55 for slave-made Chinese Walmart t-shirts. Meanwhile, key current and former officials of the privately owned Central Bank of the United States, the Federal Reserve, are scrambling to allay global alarm over the crumbling economy and the disastrous decision of the Fed to devalue the ailing US dollar even further. In the face of economic and financial analysts of every conceivable stripe, Bernanke went out of his way to defend this so-called QE2 by arguing the semantics that the Fed is not creating inflation, but fighting disinflation. "We are not in the business of trying to create inflation," he said at a conference held on Jekyll Island, the very spot where banksters met in complete secrecy 100 years ago to hatch their plans for a privately controlled bank through which they could control the American economy. "Our purpose is to provide some additional stimulus to help the economic recovery and to avoid, potentially, additional disinflation." Speaking at the same conference, which many analysts are pointing out is a type of morbid 100-year birthday party to celebrate the realization of the original dream of the banksters who created the privately owned Fed, namely that a tiny group of unimaginably wealthy individuals would be able to steer the economy of America, and indeed the world, into a depression in order to buy up global assets at pennies on the dollar, former Fed Chairman Paul Volcker made the laughable assertion that the Federal Reserve is not an abhorrence against nature and the subject of an increasingly virulent revulsion by people of all stripes and persuasions, but in fact a loved and respected institution. The Federal Reserve is respected, and it's respected at a time when respect and trust in all our government institutions is all too rare, he lied to the attendees of the Jekyll Island conference. It's that respect and that trust that at the end of the day is vital to the acceptance of its independence and to support for its policies. As many analysts are noting, the mendacity of this statement is easily enough verifiable by the fact that the phrase "end the Fed," a slogan adopted by the vast majority of the public who do not believe that a privately owned institution should have the power to create money out of thin air and then tax the citizenry for the pleasure of doing so, now returns over 92 million results in Google searches. Earlier this week, longtime Federal Reserve opponent Ron Paul announced that he and his newly elected senator son, Rand Paul, will introduce legislation to end the Fed on their very first day in office of the new congressional term.
Well, you know, first of all, we're going to get to the Fed. I know our audience wants to hear about it. You want to talk about it, but I got to congratulate you on Rand Paul. Your son just blew away the competition last night. Any advice? Did you call him up to offer any?
Well, he called shortly afterwards. He called awfully early, and he was awfully surprised it was so early. He didn't have his shirt and tie on yet. So, yeah, we talked a little bit, and we're talking about what we might do. One thing he'd like to do is have a joint party on our swearing-in day, which would be beneficial or very nice for both of us.
That's kind of nice. But beyond the parties, any specific advice on how we should govern?
Well, yes, I suggested to him we have at least one specific bill that we introduce on the first day that both of us are there, and he says, how about end the Fed? So end the Fed or audit the Fed. We'll do something with monetary policy on our first day to make a point.
What a report, huh? You can always watch the court report. I recommend it. I always try to give you those things with a taste. Here's, let's see, we know about the bonuses and stuff. Let's go with a little more Gerald Celente for you, because I just like that whole Bronx attitude he brings to you. And financially, it's a learning experience. So here you go.
I want to go back out to the director of the Trends Research Institute, Gerald Celente. Gerald, you were talking before about this QE2, the $600 billion purchase of Treasury bonds, quantitative easing. Now, this is being met with criticism, not just by you, not just by other countries, but by a lot of people here at home. So I want your prediction. Will the dollar completely collapse?
People so long to start criticizing this. This began under the Bush administration, accelerated under the Obama administration. We called it. We said it was the bailout bubble. And when this bubble burst, we said in 2008, when we first predicted it, we said it was going to destabilize the world governments. What are they waiting for? Listen to George Bush. He came out with his new book. He said he was blindsided by this financial crisis. So you have the blindsided, the stupid, and the incompetent telling us what to do next. They're ruining the country. They're devaluing the dollar. They're driving the country into poverty, and they're causing a trade war, currency crisis. Protectionism equals war. Go back to World War II. The same scenario is being set up for the next war.
As always, when it comes to money, he's got plenty to say. Gerald Celente, director of Trends Research Institute.
So when they take you down economically, where do they lead you next? How do they distract you? As they create a police state, the Department of Homeland Security, and now we have representatives here in Sharon who are the Department of Homeland Security, okay? How do they cover their exit, and what do they usually lead you into? Have you studied history? What do they do to people when they take them down economically? Would you like to study more history? All right, what else do we have for you? Here, let me show you this one. This is from 1912, too. Here's the political tug-of-war. So that people think there's a difference if you're a Democrat and there's a difference if you're a Republican, and you find out the bankers are on both sides. I know, it's 1912. I want you to see this octopus thing and take your time looking at it. As one tentacle of the octopus is over there grabbing the Treasury, another tentacle's over there doing what? Grabbing the House. Another one's got the White House, got the Capitol in the White House. Down below, we've got the factories. And over here, do you see this is what's happened? I guess you didn't realize when we, nationalized the auto thing, nationalized the health care? Are you with? I mean, at what point will you wake up and say, I've seen this fascism thing before, when corporations start taking over. This has been a corporate takeover of our republic. You, your children, your grandchildren, this is important. You have to start paying attention. You have to start not just, catching my show, but maybe doing some of the homework, maybe standing up and speaking. Even if the people call you like me, they're, oh, that nut on Channel 8. What does he know? Geez. Well, I don't know. That nut told you years ago to prepare for this. That nut, being me, told you that credit default swaps, that mortgage-backed securities, okay, that collateralized debt obligations was a way to steal from you because the bankers get the profit. We move the losses to the people. It's money you don't owe when they tell you you owe it. I'm here to tell you, you don't owe it.